Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Coach's Corner. I'm John, one of the trainers down here at Global Fitness. So today's episode is all about ending shoulder pain. So as a trainer and talking to our other trainers at the club, several physical therapists that are members, and our chiropractor here at the club, one of the most prevalent pains that people get is typically in the shoulder. So part of the reason that people get pain in their shoulders so frequently is our lifestyles are much different now than they ever have been before. So one reason that we get so much shoulder pain is the things that we do in everyday life. That means if you're at a desk all day working on the computer, if you're a teacher, if you drive a lot during the day, or it could be as simple as carrying your kids on your hip. What we've done is we've created too many situations in our lives where we're in what's called a forward flexion position. So what happens is the shoulders tend to round over as we're seated at a desk all day or whatever we're doing too much of. And then what happens is these muscles in the chest and the fronts of the body tends to actually shorten, and it pulls the shoulders forward. So what happens is then when we need to do activities that cause us to raise the arms, what happens is that rotator cuff starts to get what's called impinged, and then we have what's called shoulder impingement syndrome. So there are actually four muscles in your rotator cuff area of the body, and they are your supraspinatus, your infraspinatus, your teres minor, and your subscapularis. So they all work together to elevate and rotate the shoulder, thus the name the rotator cuff. So what happens is as those muscles shorten and we have to elevate the arm or rotate it, a couple of the tendons that are up there get impinged between the bones of the humerus and the scapular, and that of course causes us pain. So what do we do about this to end shoulder pain forever? Part of it is simple, but it does require a daily commitment to doing some stretches. So like I said at the beginning of this video, what happens is these muscles here start to shorten. So what we have to start to do is actually stretch the muscles of the chest and shoulder, and also we have to strengthen the muscles in the rear of the body, which is called your posterior chain. So your posterior chain goes from top to bottom. And a lot of what we do at the gym tends to be in what I call the mirror muscles, everything we can see in the front. So one great thing about our FitTrax and MaxTrax programs that our program developers have put into the actual program is exercises that ensure that we have lots of balance on the front and the rear of the body. So part of what FitTrax and MaxTrax is all about is not just causing you to look better, but also it will actually cause you more functionality in the shoulder, and you'll actually feel better. So let's get into these exercises. So this is a two-part video. Part one are the exercises that you can actually do at home, and I recommend that you do these every day. I personally have experienced shoulder impingement syndrome, and I'm one of those people that tends to not do enough in that posterior chain, but not anymore. Having learned and having suffered through enough shoulder pain, I do these exercises that I'm about to tell you about each and every day. So reason why I'm in my office is I want to have a doorway, because everyone has at least one doorway at home, and all you need to really start getting rid of the shoulder pain that you might be experiencing is a band. And what, in addition to the band, what I actually have is one of these doorway additions that has a little plastic piece on it, and what happens is you simply open the door, you slip that in, and then that will attach, and that will stay pretty sturdy. So why use a band instead of weights or light dumbbells or a cable machine? For several reasons. The purpose or the benefit of the band is that as a band stretches out further and further, the resistance actually increases, whereas if you use a weight, that resistance is going to stay linear from the beginning to the end. The same thing with the cable. So what we want to do is actually get the muscle to have an easy resistance at the beginning where we are all the time, but actually increase the resistance towards the end. I personally believe this is a much better advantage. The other advantage to using a band is you can actually increase the resistance without needing a heavier weight simply by sliding one end of the band. So as this band gets shorter, what will happen is that heavier resistance will occur earlier. So if I need to make this even more resistance, all I do is simply pull that band in this way, and now the resistance starts real early as I start to pull through there. So I'm going to show you 3 exercises today. What I recommend is that you do each of them every single day. So building up those muscles in the rotator cuff is not like building up your biceps or your legs or your hamstring. We just want a consistent approach to this. You don't need to get really strong. I see people that use a whole stack of weights, and they try to use too much weights, and what happens is their form typically goes downhill once they get too heavy. So our first movement, you're just going to slide the band through, and I'm going to start with a fairly moderate resistance. So I start here, I approach the doorway, and I hold onto the band right here to keep it from sliding through. And what I want to do is, first thing, let me show you some side views. One thing that we're trying to prevent is that forward flexion of the shoulder. So all the exercises that we do, you want to take that shoulder, take it up, and then put it into your back pocket. So that's going to be the most important part of doing all these exercises. If that shoulder is moved forward as you do this, what happens is you're just exacerbating the problem and making it worse and not getting that opening of the shoulder joint that you're looking for. So again, start with one band in your hand, and the first thing we're going to start with is some external resistance. So get a decent resistance on there and tuck that elbow in right here. The other thing you can do is hold on to the band and actually put your fingers right underneath your armpit, or slip a towel underneath and squeeze that towel. If the towel drops, that typically means your elbow has moved and you're out of the correct plane of motion. So let me show you that, just like that. So shoulder down and back, fingers into the armpit, forearm is parallel to the ground. I grab onto the handle of the band and I simply do what's called external rotation, just like that. So all I need to do is think of a doorway opening and closing. So we don't need to get too far open. We just really need, there's our neutral position. We just need to move a few degrees past neutral to start to strengthen this. And all I want you to do is just do as many repetitions as you can until you start to get fatigued. So what we're also trying to do is build endurance so that those muscles can stay strong all day. So that's your first part. And that's called external rotation. So then what we would do, and I'm going to switch arms so I don't have to rotate around, and I'm going to pull this in. Now you have more strength with internal rotation. So I'm switching arms, and one thing that's really important is, even though you might only be getting pain in one side or the other, you should be doing these exercises on both sides equally. Okay? So I've taken the resistance up a little bit more, so I'm going to tuck that hand right underneath, shoulder down and back, and I'm going to step away so that that arm is a little beyond what I call our neutral position. Tuck that elbow in, and I'm just going to rotate inward. Just like that. So you'll notice you have a little bit more strength and leverage on internal rotation. That's why I like to do the external rotation first, internal rotation second. So what you can do is do internal then external on the same arm, internal and external on the other arm. The other stretch I'd like to show you is something that I see in our group power class all the time, except all I'm going to do is, instead of using your arm to add resistance, use the band to add resistance. So I'm just going to actually reach around behind, and I'm going to grab onto the band, and I'm just going to wrap this around so I can get a good grip on it. Now my arm is down and back just like in those other exercises, and all I'm going to do is step away from the doorway, and we're going to feel that shoulder start to open up. And now the last thing I usually try to tell people to do is to get used to that feeling of that shoulder being back, is to press your forearm into your low back. So as you step away, you'll start to open this up, and then the last step would be to drop the head in the direction of where you're pulling from, and that's going to open up that shoulder. So again, you don't want to overstretch, you just want to get that and just let that loosen up. And now there's one more stretch I'd also like to show you, and then we'll be done with our at-home portion, is again, you can just lace the band around. Actually, I'll switch hands. So I'll just lace that around, and I'm only lacing that around so I can stay in the camera shot. You can just grab onto the handles, and what you'll do is you'll actually put your palms facing inward, grab onto the band, and just step away from the door and let that shoulder open up. And again, you want to put the shoulder down and back and just let that open up. So again, don't overstretch. And just let that start to open up. So your shoulders will feel fabulous after doing these exercises. Now, if your pain does not go away in a fairly short amount of time, and I'm talking about a month, what I always recommend is that you go see your primary care. You might need to be under the care of an orthopedist. If you've had shoulder pain for too long, what can develop are bone spurs, or we want to make sure that we don't have any actual tears or anything like that in any of your shoulder muscles, or nothing going on in the joint. So that is part one of our Ending Shoulder Pain Forever. There'll be part two. The part two are exercises you can add into your routine at the gym or at your house that will really help provide that balance front to back. So this is John. If you have any questions about anything I showed you, talk to any of the trainers down here at Global Fitness, and have a great day.